The story of Nepal begins in a place of myth and mist, the Kathmandu Valley. Legends say it was once a vast, shimmering lake, a home for serpents and gods. A wise figure, Manjushri, is said to have traveled from the north. He saw the valley's potential. With a single, powerful stroke of his flaming sword, he cleaved the Chobar Gorge. The water drained away, leaving behind a fertile, sacred land. This is where Nepal's first people put down their roots. It's a story you hear whispered in temples and tea houses even today. The first rulers to emerge from these mists of time were the Gopalas, the cowherds, followed by the Mahishapalas, humble leaders guiding pastoral communities. Then, around the 7th or 8th century BCE, the Karati people arrived from the east, bringing a more organized system of governance and a martial tradition. Their most famous king, Yalambar, is even mentioned in the epic Mahabharata. The Karatis fostered trade routes linking India and Tibet and laid the groundwork for a more complex society. After the long rule of the Kiratis, a new dynasty rose to prominence around 400 CE. The Licchavi swept in from the Gangetic plains of India. They brought fresh ideas, new artistic styles, and administrative skills, a cultural revolution in the Kathmandu Valley. This wasn't just a change of rulers. They introduced a passion for art and architecture that changed the valley. The most famous Licchavi king was Manadeva I. His inscriptions on stone pillars are among Nepal's earliest written records. Sculptors created breathtaking images of Hindu and Buddhist deities. Religion, philosophy, and art flowed together. Nepal became a vital bridge between South and Central Asia. Trade, diplomats, and artisans moved along these routes. The Licchavis curated a civilization. The valley became an open-air gallery. Their blueprint is still visible in the heart of Nepal. They established religious harmony. Hinduism and Buddhism coexisted and enriched each other, leaving a monumental legacy. As the Licchavi influence waned, a new power began to rise. From around the 12th century, the Malla kings took control of the Kathmandu Valley. The Mallas were obsessive patrons of the arts. To rule was to build, to beautify and create earthly paradises that mirrored the heavens. Their reign lasted more than 500 years, defined by an intense artistic rivalry that turned the valley into a stunning architectural showcase. Under Yaksha Malla, the valley was united and prosperous. But upon his death, he divided the kingdom among his sons, creating Kathmandu, Patan, and Paktapur. Durbar squares became focal points. Carved wooden windows, gilded spires, multi-roof pagodas. Every window and doorway told a mythological story. Nuwari artisans excelled in woodwork, metalcraft, and stone carving. They turned ordinary buildings into works of art. But the rivalry left them politically fragmented and vulnerable. Internal squabbles made them weak against outside threats. The Malla dynasty left a legacy of architectural genius and a cautionary tale about how disunity can pave the way for conquest. While the Malla kings were absorbed in their artistic rivalries, a new force gathered in the hills to the west, the small kingdom of Gorkha. A young, ambitious king named Prithvi Narayan Shah ascended the throne. He looked at the Kathmandu Valley not with an artist's eye, but with a conqueror's vision. He was a brilliant strategist. He played a long game, conquering smaller kingdoms, cutting trade routes, strangling the valley economically. His disciplined Gorkhali soldiers tightened their grip, while Malla alliances faltered. In 1768, as the people of Kathmandu celebrated Indra Jatra, Prithvi Narayan Shah's forces launched a decisive attack. The city fell, and he sat on the throne the Malla king had vacated. Over the next year, he conquered Patan and Bhaktapur, moved his capital to Kathmandu, and declared a unified Nepal. He described his kingdom as a yam between two boulders, India and China, a prescient view of geopolitics. Prithvi Narayan Shah is revered as the father of the nation, the man who hammered warring principalities into a single proud kingdom. The rapid expansion of the Gorkhali Empire brought it into conflict with the British East India Company as the British consolidated control over India. Tensions over trade and borders boiled into the Anglo-Nepalese War of 1814-1816. Gorkhali soldiers fought tenaciously, stunning the British. but superior British resources ultimately forced Nepal to sue for peace. The Treaty of Sugauli in 1816 was painful. Nepal ceded lands such as Sikkim and Kumaon Garhwal and accepted a British resident in Kathmandu. Internal turmoil followed. In 1846, the Kot massacre ushered in Jung Bahadur Rana's seizure of power. The Ranas made the prime ministership hereditary. For 104 years, the Ranas ruled as autocrats, living in European-style palaces while keeping the country isolated, suppressing education and development. A long, dark century of gilded cages and arrested development left most Nepalese impoverished and cut off from modern change. The Rana period would shape Nepal's later struggles for democracy and modernization. By the late 1940s, the world had changed. The British departed India. Winds of change swept across Asia. Educated Nepalis, inspired by independence movements, formed parties in exile, dreaming of overthrowing the Ranas. King Tribhuvan sought asylum in the Indian embassy in November 1950. He and his family were flown to New Delhi. The act galvanized opposition. The Nepali Congress launched an insurrection. Protests and Indian mediation forced a change. In February 1951, King Tribhuvan returned in triumph and announced the end of the Rana premiership, a coalition government formed with the Nepali Congress. For the first time in over a century, Nepal opened to the world. There was optimism, but political instability soon followed. Nepal held its first general election in 1959, but the experiment was short-lived. King Mahendra succeeded Tribhuvan in 1955 and favored a more autocratic path. Transitioning from a century of autocracy proved fraught. Euphoria gave way to the hard reality of building institutions. King Mahendra staged a royal coup in 1960, dismissing the elected government, imprisoning leaders like B.P. Koirala, banning parties and suspending the constitution. He replaced democracy with the partyless panchayat system, in practice an absolute monarchy that lasted 30 years. Resistance never died. Pro-democracy activists organized in exile and underground networks within Nepal. By 1990, frustration reached a boiling point. Banned parties united, launching the Jana Andolan, the People's Movement. Millions filled the streets. King Birendra relented. Parties were legalized. A new constitution created a constitutional monarchy and multi-party parliament. But the 1990s proved unstable. Corruption and infighting bred disillusionment and paved the way for radical movements. In 1996, the Maoist People's War began. A decade-long civil war followed, with horrific human costs. In 2001, the Royal Massacre shocked the nation. The tragedy shattered reverence for the monarchy and set in motion events that would end the Shah dynasty. King Gyanendra's unpopular 2005 seizure of absolute power triggered a broad reaction. Mainstream parties and Maoists united against the king. They signed a 12-point agreement and mass protests set the stage for a decisive confrontation. In April 2006, hundreds of thousands flooded the streets for 19 days. Facing collapse, the king reinstated parliament and lost his powers. The Maoists entered mainstream politics. In 2008, a constituent assembly voted to abolish the monarchy and declare Nepal a federal democratic republic. Just as the republic found its feet, disaster struck. On April 25, 2015, a 7.8 magnitude earthquake ripped through central Nepal, killing nearly 9,000. Hundreds of thousands were left homeless, ancient temples reduced to rubble, a humanitarian crisis that demanded unity. The tragedy spurred national urgency. Leaders agreed to finish the long-delayed constitution amid reconstruction. In September 2015, Nepal adopted a new constitution, establishing a secular, inclusive federal republic, a landmark achievement amid controversy. The journey of the new republic has been anything but easy. Since 2015, political instability has continued, with frequent changes in government. Shifting alliances among major parties, Nepali Congress, CPN-UML, CPN Maoist Center, have hampered governance and reconstruction efforts. Reconstruction has been slowed by political churn, but infrastructure projects and foreign investment offer opportunities. Geography forces Nepal to balance relations with India and China. Both offer aid and strategic investments that must be managed carefully. Despite challenges, Nepalis show resilience. Volunteers, artisans, and communities rebuild homes and temples together. Tourism recovers, cultural heritage draws visitors, a young connected generation and a free press strengthens civil society. Looking back, myths, warring kingdoms, isolated autocracy, a vibrant if chaotic republic, natural disasters and civil strife, Nepal endures. Its story is one of culture, the unyielding desire for freedom and the tenacity required to forge a nation in the shadow of the world's highest mountains. Nepal's journey is far from over, but its past gives reason to be hopeful for its future. Its untold story continues to be written every day,